Yo, 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 welcome back to another episode of On the Spot Sports. And before we get to our guest today, we have a big shout out for Living Sisu. Living Sisu is a platform and app that wants to give you all the tools to have success in your sport. Their main objective is to activate your lifestyle. So it's for active people. Enjoy discounts at companies like BioSteel, 30% off, Body Logics, the Goalie Guild, all his books are discounted. Roan, Lululemon for men, 20% off, online stretching programs with Eccentrics, 1 full month free. They got super silent massage guns, 20% off those. And it's a great quality. It's way less expensive than a Theragun, and it's great quality. So there's so many more discounts that you guys will need to just become a member to see. So they want to provide you with anything you need for success. So come join the community. I'm a part of it. A bunch of other athletes are a part of it. So it's free to join. It takes 20 seconds to get exclusive offers to your sport, and it's definitely worth it. So do us a huge favor and go sign up for Living Sisu's membership. It's free, takes 20 seconds. So go do it, and we'll see you there. Living Sisu is a great company. We know one of the co-founders, Zach Fricali. He's a great guy. He's the co-founder. He does a lot of live streams on Instagram at Living Sisu, and with a bunch of elite athletes, and you learn a lot from like the athletes' determination, their resiliency, everything to what made them become successful. So it's been a great experience so far. So go on. I'm gonna leave the link in the description. So go sign up. Yo, welcome back to another episode of On the Spot Sports. I'm Jack, and today's episode we're joined by a very special guest, current professional hockey goaltender Joe Noonan. Joe just finished his first season of professional hockey, playing for the Port Huron Prowlers in the FPHL, as well as the Peoria Rivermen in the Southern Professional Hockey League. Joe played his junior hockey days in the USPHL Premier and Elite Leagues, as well as the OJHL, before attending 4 years of NCAA Division III college hockey for the University of New England prior to turning pro. So it's going to be a fun episode. So welcome to the show, Joe Noonan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I actually did 5 years of college. And and I was at Johnson & Wales for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th years. Don't want to leave them out.
5 years. There we go. But how have you been? Like, I know you're training and like you're goalie coaching a lot. So like how's everything with you?
Yeah, it's going well. I coach for Stop It Goaltending here in New England, and we work out of Merrimack College, at least our group does. So Monday through Thursday, I'm here from about 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I skate for about an hour and a half, and I coach the rest of the sessions. And then Monday and Wednesday, I just coach them all. So we have goalies from like 8 years old all the way up to like, Corey Schneider. So
it's a busy schedule.
Yeah.
Busy schedule, but I'm sure you're loving it because you love the game, and like just to give back to like the younger generation as well. Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah, beats sitting in an office.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But this season was your first year of professional hockey, where you played with the Port Huron Prowlers in the Fed, and then you got some time in the SB2 with the Peoria Rivermen. So like, what was your time like as a first year professional hockey player, and just like the learning curves you have to learn throughout the year?
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2020, and then the season after that, I played in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It was a senior A semi-pro team. And I was planning on going back there, and then didn't end up doing that. And one of my teammates from that team is the captain in Port Huron, and they just needed a practice goalie in October. And so he gave me a call, and I went out there, and then I ended up playing because one of the goalies had COVID. We had 3 games in 3 days. And then literally like a week later, I got called up to Peoria. They just needed a guy for the weekend, and I ended up hanging on there for 2 months. Got in a couple games. They had a starter who's nasty, and he's an older guy, like 33, 34. And so he got every start while I was there. I got in the first game that I was there, went in relief. We ended up winning. I think it was 4-2 when I went in. Ended up winning in a shootout 5-4. So that was fun. That was like the highlight of my year. But it's really just about like two things, right? Like one is the lifestyle and the grind of every day, versus being in college where you practice hard, but you have a lot of other things going on too, right? So your time at the rink might be a little bit limited because the coaches have to be cognizant of how much time you have for homework and whatever other commitments you have on campus. And there's more rules there with how much they're allowed to be on the ice and how early in the season they can go on and what you can do afterwards. And pro hockey, as long as the ice is open, it's kind of like, if you want it, it's there. And if you don't want it, that's usually not a good sign for the coach to see. So, and if you pass up the ice too much, then somebody else that is taking advantage of that is probably going to pass you in the lineup sooner or later. So there's the lifestyle change, and then the speed of the play. Obviously, it's a little bit faster. I found there was a pretty big difference between the SP and the Fed, but the experience that guys play with in the Federal League makes up for some of the lack of their speed or their skill, right? They can read the play pretty well. The plays don't always get executed the way that you would read them to be, but they know how to organize their systems pretty well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like everything you learned. Like I want to talk about like that SB game because you did come in relief when you guys were losing, and then you come into a 4-2 game and then win 5-4 and over in shootout. So like what was it like to play in to come in relief? Because like a lot, like you don't want to be losing when you come in relief, but like you also just go in there.
You
And
usually are though. Yeah. So like I had just met the guys that morning. I got in to Peoria the night before at like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, spent the night in a hotel. And then because I didn't want to deal with moving my stuff in that late at night, went to morning skate and then showed up. Like I had no idea what any of it was going to be like. And it was 4-2 in the second period, and our starter had given up like at least one kind of questionable goal, kind of overplaying the pass option, and gives up a high short side goal when he's down on his knees. And that drove our coach crazy. Not just that one, but like over and over all year, he'd get on him about like, make sure you challenge, make sure you challenge. So I think he was kind of trying to piss him off a little bit, like, you know, screw this guy. Doesn't want to challenge the puck. I'm going to throw in this kid that we just got from the Federal League that nobody even knows his first name. And we were playing Knoxville, and they finished the year with the second highest point total ever in the league history. And obviously they got upset in the first round by Roanoke. Was it Roanoke? I think it was Roanoke.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. And but they had a good team, and they had a lot of power plays. My guys killed off a lot of penalties. They did awesome with that. And that was one thing that made it pretty easy for me, was the way that the guys play in Peoria is not passive. Like everything is fast. And so it's easy to like just get into the game because you have to play fast. You know, they're not sitting back and kind of letting the play come to them. So if you don't match that, you're going to be behind the play. But if you do match it, then you don't have as much time to think about everything else that's going on. So that was good. One of the penalties was my penalty, actually. It was the first game I've ever played with a trapezoid. And I went out to the corner and I made a sick play with the puck, and the ref blew the whistle down, and I had no idea what happened, but we killed it off. And then they picked me up in the shootout. I think I gave up 2 goals on the 4 shots that I faced and they scored 4, something like that. So that was where they scored 3. I can't remember, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but you came away with, you may have given up 2 goals in the shootout, but you guys came away with the win, and the boys picked you up in the shootout. So that's always a good feeling, and especially get your first SB win there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And very
Absolutely.
different from the Fed, right? Like Port Huron, we get 700 to 900 fans, and Peoria, we got about 2 to 2.5, 3,000 on a good night. So, and super different ranks.
Yeah, so that barn was bumping, it was buzzing over there, that for a
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then, but when you were in Port Huron, you talked about being like their practice goalie before like getting your game. So like, what was it like? What was your mindset throughout that time when you're the practice goalie and then you get an opportunity? Like, you just have to go out there and just perform.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of knew it was coming because when I showed up, they had already had one of the guys test positive for COVID. So we had 3 games in 3 days on the weekend. It was a long trip. We drove from Port Huron, which is about an hour north of Detroit, down to Biloxi, Mississippi. So it was like a 20-hour bus ride. And then we played 1 game there and then 2 games in Columbus, Georgia. And my captain said, "Hey, like we got 3 and 3, you're probably going to get at least one of them. So just be ready." And it was fine. Like I wasn't treated like a practice goalie because we only had 2 guys at that point. So I had a net to myself in practice, which was great. It's another difference between the Fed and higher levels is the Fed usually has like 3 goalies at least at practice, and the SP only has 2. So it was good for me to have as many shots as I could get because I was just coming from home. And then I got into the game that Sunday. We lost 5-2 or 5-3 to Columbus. And then 3 days later, the Peoria guys needed somebody. So
Yeah,
it was fine. Like I didn't have a typical practice goalie experience, which is fine for me. But I think no matter what position you're on in the depth chart, your job is the same, right? You show up and
yeah,
you try to stop the puck. And whether you're the starter, like the guy in Peoria that I was behind, who I think probably came in second in league voting for goalie of the year, had call-ups to the AHL, played in the ECHL a lot. Like he's a stud. He
yeah,
takes 30 to 40 minutes of shots after practice every day. He takes 90% of the reps when it's a 1-end drill. Like you don't slow down just because you're on top. You have to keep working, right? So whether
yeah.
you're that guy or you're the 3rd guy on a Fed team, if the shots are there, you better be in the net.
Yeah, that just proves how like he wants to be the number one, wants to be the best at his craft, is just, and he takes all the reps he possibly can, and
Yeah.
doesn't rest like when doesn't take like 50% of the shots. He takes literally pretty much all the shots except like 10% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about like the lifestyle and like the grind and like embracing that journey. So like everyone always has like that saying where it's like it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So like what is it about the journey that like keeps you going and just wants you to, and it helps you like want to get better and stay motivated?
Yeah. And there's probably 2 things. One would be your past, right? A lot of people have things that they can go back and look at and say, this coach didn't believe in me.
Yeah,
I didn't make this team. And even though I'm not with them anymore, I'm going to use that as motivation to try to prove people from my past wrong.
yeah,
Could usually say the same thing, although it doesn't get said quite as often, to prove people right that believe in you, right? And hopefully everybody has at least a few people in their lives that have supported them with their belief and encouragement throughout their careers. For me, it would be my dad. My mom's very supportive too. And so when you get that opportunity, it does mean a lot to try to live up to that expectation and that belief that other people have in you, not just yourself. And the second thing about like why keep playing is, I guess, like once you're done, you can't go back really.
Yeah.
Just from the physical side of the game, like if you stop playing, you're going to kind of lose the ability that you had once you're out of practice. It's not something that you can just pick back up again, and eventually your body will just kind of not be able to do it anymore. So do it while you can. And there's nothing like the locker room, right? And the bus rides and hanging out with the guys. You can't replicate those sorts of relationships in other facets of life, different careers. You might have friends at work, you might be really close with your friends at work, but it's not going to be like when you walk into the locker room.
Yeah, like those are the best memories, is just everything like off ice. Like yeah, you have the on ice stuff, like off ice, like you're hanging with the boys, the roadies, like you're like those are the things you live for as an athlete, like professionally, like collegiately, like anything. Like the road trips are the best trips, and like you make so many memories outside of the rink.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what would be like some tips that you would give like younger goalies wanting to get to like the either be the college level, going from college to, or juniors to college, college to pro or junior to pro?
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing would be advocate for yourself. Don't, as much as possible, I know it helps to have somebody in your corner, especially somebody whose opinion is well respected among other people, but don't rely on other people 100%. Not to be pessimistic, but they'll let you down, right? Like you have to be your number one spokesperson all the time. On the ice for goalies, skating, it's like the biggest thing I see. The goalies that I coach, the goalies that I still play with, that I see in college that are going to pro, or juniors going to college, high school going to prep, whatever. The best skaters are the ones that keep playing. I'm 5'9". If I was an average skater, I wouldn't have even played in college, So that would be the number one thing for me to tell a goalie is keep working on your edges and then add pace to it. Try to play fast.
Yeah, and like skating is the most important thing, because if you can't move, you're not going to be able to stay at the level or play at the level you want to, because every year the game just gets faster and faster, and like it just keeps growing and keeps getting quicker and strong, and everyone just keeps getting stronger. So then prior to you playing professional hockey, you also were in the Black Diamond Hockey League with Jackson Hole Moose, and you played a few games there. So like what, like I know that was like during like the COVID year and all that. It's like how did everything go down? Like what was it like playing semi-professional there?
Yeah, so I was kind of worried that nobody was going to have games, and worse than that, nobody knew if they were going to have games, if that makes sense. So like even if you got on a team, like that's great, you get on a team, you might not have a season, that would suck. But the harder part was trying to get on a team, because coaches would say, well, we don't even know if we're going to have a season, so we're not really doing anything. So it almost made it harder to get on a team rather than just to even have a season if you were already on a roster. So I had talked to one of my best friends from high school who played for the Sun Valley team in the Black Diamond League, and he'd been out there for 3 years, I think. And then randomly my college coach called me just to see how I was doing, and I told him, like kind of struggling to find teams that know if they're going to play or not, let alone get a chance with one of them. But my buddy from high school is playing out in Sun Valley, and he said that this team in Jackson Hole might need a goalie this year. And he said, oh, no way, I played for them. And I had no idea that he had, but he spent 1 year out in Jackson,
like 8 or 9 years prior, I think, right when he finished college. And so he got a hold of the owner slash GM out there. And he gave me a call and he said, basically, we've got one guy that's coming to play goalie, and we've got another guy who is deciding if he wants to or not. And give me a week and I'll know. And so it was a week, and I called him back. And for a couple weeks, he kept saying, I'm still not sure if he's going to come or not. And then after about a month, he called me and he said, can we swear on this?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, he said, pack your shit, you're coming to Jackson. So so that was how that happened. I had never been out there, didn't really know much about the league other than what my friend had told me about playing in Sun Valley, and which is in Idaho. It's like mountain town in Idaho, kind of a resort town, similar to Jackson or Park City, something like that. And I got out there, I was blown away by the town. Town is like, I used to say it's like a Wild West cowboy town meets a ski resort.
Wow.
So it's like
Interesting place.
Yeah, and it's tiny, and it's right up against Grand Teton National Park. So like literally you go one block away from the center of town and you're in Grand Teton, which is really cool. The rink was right up against the bottom of the mountain, not Grand Teton, but the one in town, kind of a smaller mountain. But I bet the ski lift was about 30 feet from the door to the rink.
Wow.
It was just, yeah, it was cool. It was like a different kind of experience out there. We only practiced as a team once a week, but the rink was open every day for us to go in and use it. So I skated almost every day, got a part-time job making food at a grocery store, and skied a little bit and just hung out. That was kind of it. It was a lot of fun. Kind of like a little local celebrity group of guys, because there's really not much to do. The closest city would be like Salt Lake City, which is 5.5 hours, 6 hours away. So like
not really close, but within distance.
Right. Yeah. We were kind of the only show in town for the winter. You know, people come from all over the world to ski there and do all the outdoor stuff. But I don't even think there's a movie theater. So if you want some entertainment, we were the place to be on Friday and Saturday night. Unfortunately, we only played like 8 games, and we weren't able to sell out the rink with COVID restrictions. But at the end of my like pro career, I'd probably like to go back out there for at least a year or two. And that's what the team is. We had a few guys that played in one guy that played in the AHL, a few guys that played in the Coast, some guys that played in the SP. Pretty much everybody on the team at least played Division III, NCAA. Those are probably like the worst players on the team. The roster, if it practiced every day, they'd probably be the best team in at least the Fed, and they could have competed with some of the lower end teams in the SP that I played against this year. So it's a really good group of players.
Yeah, what a like a place to go play and like just experience everything you did, like especially since it was like a bit of a different like style of living and all that, like with like the Western style along with like the Western with like the Utah and all that, and ski resort, like mix and match those two and like get an interesting combo. But it must have been a great experience. And like since it is so small, I'm sure like everyone at least knows who you guys are, and like since you're like the only entertainment out there, that like everyone knows who you are and like will notice you when you're out.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like just the quality of hockey too, with everyone like playing from the A to the Coast to the SP and the Fed, like just to get that foot in the door of like professional hockey. Like that must have been nice, especially going into your first year in the Fed.
Right. Yeah, it was. And that's where I met my captain from last year in Port Huron, who got me to the Prowlers. His name's Dustin Henning. He's like best guy ever. He's like the embodiment actually of that kind of like hybrid Western mountain kind of guy. He's from Colorado, and he's a professional bullfighter. Not like a matador like this, but like at a rodeo where it's similar to bull riding, but instead of ride for 8 seconds, you have to stay alive in the ring for like 60 or 90 seconds. He's just like a gritty dude, but he's awesome. So getting to meet those guys, and I think with teams like that, certainly in Jackson Hole, it was true. Like guys aren't getting paid, and it's really about the hockey, and it's really about the relationships and the friendships that you have. So like there wasn't really a guy on the team that I didn't like. And it's kind of rare to be able to say that. That was probably the first time that had happened for me since I was in high school, where like you can say that your friends are at worst like friendly with every single guy that you play with, because they would way rather pass up a guy that has a ton of talent, was kind of an asshole,
Yeah. Just
rather
for someone
than
good, like that
right,
the boys are going to get
exactly.
along with.
Yeah, they were all
Yeah.
great guys.
Yeah, and you don't want to destroy a locker room. So just bringing guys like that, like just especially since you're just playing, not getting paid, you're just playing for the love of the game and just enjoying it. And then you're also for the moments and the friendships as well. Like you don't want a cancer to come in the locker room and destroy everything you guys had.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's a huge learning experience, especially going from college into like a place like that, and then going into like the Fed the following years. Like what did you learn from playing in the Black Diamond League, and just how everything ran from like a professional standpoint, since you probably are starting to make more routines and everything, and just to learn a lot from that experience.
Yeah, I think the first thing going from college to that would be the freedom that you have. Like college, for as much responsibility as you have, a lot of it is designated outside of your control, right?
Yeah.
Like you have class to deal with, you have a social life with your teammates to deal with, maybe you might have a job or a work study or something like that, and then you have your practices and games, your team lifts, all that stuff. So it's a lot. Like it's more responsibility than in a any given day of pro hockey, but it's almost easier to deal with because you have your tasks given to you, right? So like if you don't show up for a team lift or a team warm up or something in college, you're going to get cut. If you don't work out on your own in pro hockey, like nobody's there to tell you like you have to do this. Hi. You have more time to make worse decisions, if that makes sense. So like
Yeah.
if you lead an undisciplined life away from the rink and you have too much time on your hands, you're bound to get in trouble. So I guess finding your priorities. You're a good girl. She came with me, so that was like an easy thing. But finding your priorities after your schedule opens up on a day-to-day basis is really important. When you go from college to semi-pro or professional hockey, there's just way more time on your hands. That captain I had, Dustin, he said the hardest thing about playing pro hockey is figuring out what to do with the other 20 hours a day you have away from the rink. Like it's not like that when you're in school, right? So
Yeah.
or even in juniors, when maybe you're living with your parents or your billet family or something, you have somebody kind of like, what have you been up to all day? When you're just out on your own, away from everybody, like I didn't know a single person when I showed up there. I had played against a few guys, but I didn't really know them. So it's like up to you. Like, what do I want to do today? Do I want to work out and get better? Do I want to be a couch potato? Because nobody's going to give me a hard time about it either way, right?
Yeah.
So that was like a good stepping stone for me to get to professional hockey this year and kind of be accustomed to how to manage my day and how much time do I need to spend at the rink every day. When you have to figure those things out for yourself, it takes a little bit of time to adhere to that learning curve rather than having a college coach kind of up your ass all day every day.
Yeah.
Then the decision making is taken out of your hands.
Yeah, everything's already put on the plate for you. So like throughout like the like 20 hours that you have left, like it's important to have like other hobbies and everything outside the rinks. Like what do you do to get away from the rink and just enjoy those next 20 hours?
Yeah, depends where I was. So when I was in Peoria, I spent more time at the rink after practice than I did in Port Huron. Couple reasons. One was the rink was actually about a half hour from our house, so I couldn't really go back, and it was like a legit arena, so like if they lock the door, you're locked out. So you got to get all your work in while you're at the rink, and then I'd go home and maybe do some reading and hang out with my roommates, and then that was kind of it for me for the day. In Port Huron, the locker room was open 24/7 because the door was actually broken. So like actually couldn't lock the door. It was a door in the back that just went to a staircase and went up to our room. So that side door was broken. So you could get in any time of day or night. Nothing ever got stolen, which is good. But
Luckily.
yeah, so like there I would get up. We had practice in the mornings there, and probably get to practice about 2 hours ahead of time and maybe stay for about a half hour after. And then there was a diner across the street called Maria's that I'd go to. I think I went in like the 2.5 or 3 months total that I was in Port Huron. I probably went all but maybe like 3 days. And it's the kind of place where you could just hang out and talk to people. So mostly the staff, or if any of your teammates came. Dustin and I went almost every day. So I mean, there were some days where I'd just be hanging out in there for like 3 hours or 4 hours, but and then head back to the rink and work out or do some yoga or something. And then the other thing I did was I have an English major from college, so I got a part-time writing job for a group called the Daily Caller. It's a national, hi, I know you want to play, a national news outlet, and they just needed people to write like short, straight, no opinion news story, little blurbs like this just happened, this is who it happened to, this is when, this is why, and whatever. And so they just send it out in a group email to all their people. I did a few of them. It was kind of hard because it was never at the same time every day, so you kind of had to sit for 4 or 5 hours sometimes hitting refresh on your email to get it.
Refresh.
Yeah, exactly. So that got kind of old, but I did that a little bit too.
Yeah, at least it kept you busy and you were able to I'm guessing the diner had some pretty good food if you're spending all but 3 days there.
Yeah, they had the best food in town.
Yeah, that's a positive, and just that you're able to just spend so much time there and eat some good quality food, especially like when things are all over the place sometimes like that. That's at least one good part, to have a good nutrition plan going.
Yeah.
But then before you went into the Black Diamond League, you spent 4 or 5 years in college. You said earlier for University of New England, where you started there in 2015-16. So like, what was the process like to commit to University of New England, and just like, did you go to like any showcases before that to like have them get your eye on it on you, or was it just a fluke situation?
Yeah, it was a little bit fluky. I played 2 years of juniors, and I was hoping to go to Clarkson as like a recruited walk on, and that was
Yeah.
the understanding I had there was that I was not recruited, but I got into the school. They were interested in having me at least try out for the team. And then in August of that year, I got a call from the coach, and he said, we just committed another goalie. So like, there's no spot for you. And I said, can I at least try out on the ice? And he said, no. So at that point, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to find something else. So it came down to kind of a last minute decision for me between UNE and UMass Boston. I was good friends with the nephew of the coach at UMass Boston. I had known him for a while. His father, my friend's grandfather, was Bill Belisle, the high school hockey Hall of Fame coach at Mount St. Charles in Rhode Island. I'm sure you or some of your listeners are familiar with his name.
Yeah.
I think they won like 20 something national championships in a row.
That's crazy. A legend right there.
Yeah. So his grandson and this college coach's nephew, I had played with and against growing up. So he was interested in having me at UMass Boston, and I ended up liking UNE better, ended up going there, and I loved it. 2 years, I just wasn't playing very much. And there was a goalie coach that first day he said, I don't believe in goalie coaching. And I was kind of like, why are you doing it then? So there were some things that we didn't see eye to eye on, and I wasn't playing as much as I wanted to. So it seemed like there wasn't really a future for me on the ice there. And so I left and went to Johnson and Wales.
Yeah. So like, you have like a whole like 360 like turn of events there, from Clarkson to going into like having like UMass Boston there, and then University of New England. So like, what were some of your expectations going in? Like, I know you didn't get the playing time you wanted, but like, what were you expecting going into that first year? And like, what did you do to like work your bag off, like, especially when you aren't playing? Like, what did you do to help like get that mindset better than just, oh, I'm not playing, like, just to work on your game?
Right. So this was the mindset I adopted, and I think it's a good one for anybody to adopt, even outside of hockey, which is that if you're doing something that you're passionate about, for us, it would be playing hockey, and it's not going well for reasons outside of your control where you are currently, keep in mind that how you practice, how you work out, how you improve yourself in that current like crappy situation will affect the next situation. And so to have that belief in yourself that there will be a next situation, it will motivate you to work hard, even if you don't see the dividends pay off where you are at that time, right? So I went from the mindset of my freshman year, I got to work hard, I got to practice really hard, I got to do my best so that I can play on Friday or Saturday, beat out the other freshman, beat out the senior, to my sophomore year, which was, I don't think he's ever going to play me again. So I'm going to take the ice time. I'm going to take an hour before practice, an hour after practice, and I'm going to work as hard as I can so that next year when I go to a different school, I can beat him. So like you need to have that vision be long enough for you to see that your current position is not going to be forever. And are you using that time and the opportunities in hockey, if it's ice time or working out or whatever it is, are you using that time wisely to set yourself up for success at the next spot?
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset to have, especially like since you weren't playing a lot and you were just taking that ice time that you can to help yourself develop and get better. Because like some people would just be like all like the negative thoughts would come into their mind and they won't train as hard because they're like, oh, I'm not going to get a shot. But like just to have that mindset and like motivation, like you can get away with like anything when you do have that mindset, and just if you put your mind to it, like the situation is going to change. Is like you said, it's not going to be forever and you're just going to get another opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you go into your second year and still nothing, and then you go into Johnson and Wales going into your third year, into your junior year of college. So like what was that transition like going out from University of New England to Johnson and Wales?
Yeah. So I thought it was going to go a lot better than it did. I guess, most people say that about everything in their life, but, or at least I hope they do. It makes me feel better. So I pulled my groin in
What a start.
July or August going into that junior year. And I was excited to go. I was sad to leave UNE because I did like the school so much and I liked a lot of my friends, liked a bunch of my teammates. But I had friends from Rhode Island from when I was in high school who were on the Johnson and Wales team. So I wasn't going in completely blind. I was excited to get to play with them again, and to go back to Providence where I had lived before. So, and I was excited for a new start, right? And I pulled my groin, thought it would be better in like a week or two. And then it was like a month or two. And then I went and saw a doctor and I ended up having surgery that November. And then and that was for something in my abdomen. And then my groin was still bothering me. So in April of the following, like after New Year's, same year, but the next calendar year, I had surgery on my groin. And then those two, sorry, something just popped up. Those two procedures did not go well. They weren't done well, and I don't think they did the correct ones either for the issue I was having. So I had to go see a different group of doctors down in Philadelphia. It's a famous place called the Vincera Institute. So like Justin Verlander's had surgery there. Sidney Crosby had surgery there. They're professionally affiliated with the Flyers. They share the same athletic trainer. So I went and saw this guy and he said, oh yeah, I know your injury and I know those surgeries that they did and they never should have done them, and I'm going to reverse them and fix them for you. And he did, and I haven't had any problems since then. But I missed that entire junior year, and it was difficult because it was pretty difficult for me socially with my teammates because I didn't live with any of them. I had my own apartment on the other side of town, and I remember thinking it would have been easier if I just tore my ACL and I could have said, like, I'm going to miss 9 to 12 months, right?
Yeah.
I pulled my groin. I think I can make it to captain's practice in like a month and a half. Oh, no, I didn't make it to that. Like, I'll see how it goes at preseason. I'll see how the first week of practice goes. I can't imagine I'll miss that. And then it's like, well, I need surgery. So I'm out till at least second semester. And then it still doesn't feel right. Like I might need another surgery. And then I need a third surgery. Am I going to make it to the start of my senior year, you know. So it
Yeah.
was like this timeline that kept going of me thinking that I would be able to play and not, with a group of guys that, other than a few of my friends, didn't really know me. Right. So
Yeah. So it's a tough
would have been
situation
easier if I
regardless.
had a history with them. Right. And
Yeah.
like, I didn't miss a single practice my first 2 years of college. So, but they didn't know that. To them, I had never made practice.
Yeah.
And then my senior year, it didn't get any better. I had concussion problems. I came back from the surgery, got a concussion on the first day of tryouts. One of my teammates ran me, and it pretty much ruined my season. The only highlight from that season for me was getting to play against UNE.
Did you get the win?
We lost 4-3, but
Oh,
the shots were like 56 or 58 to like 18 or 20. It was something like that. Like, it was stupid. So that was fun. It sucked to lose, but for me personally, it was worth going through the handshake line against,
yeah.
like, all my friends were still on the team at that point too. So, and then my head was still bothering me after that. So I kind of shut it down for the rest of the season. And then those issues kind of continued my fifth year. So I ended up doing more of an assistant coach role my fifth year. And we had a new head coach that year. And he ended up giving me the coach's award, which is like very humbling, awesome gesture that he made to me with that. But just kind of a tough 3 years to show up every day and know that you're working hard, but maybe other guys on the team don't really realize that you are, or they might look at you and think that you're soft, or that you're not motivated, or that you don't love the game enough and stuff like that. And try to integrate yourself socially into that situation is difficult, but stuck through it. And I'm fine now. I didn't miss a single practice. I didn't miss a single game. And I made it through the last 2 seasons totally fine. So I haven't had any issues at all.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And like, especially like the last 2 years where you're able to still play and like nothing's bothering you, compared to like when you're facing all that adversity all at like once, it seems like, in college. And then just to go on, get that assistant coach like role. Like, what did you notice like from that like position point of view, from like going from like the player side to being like the coach and like being like a leader in a way, even though it's kind of hard because you weren't really with the team for that long because of your injuries?
Yeah, I started doing the coaching towards the end of the season, but I was there pretty much all day, or not all day, but I was there every day for practice and all the games, and I traveled and everything. And it was an interesting experience to see it from a coach's perspective. And for me, I hadn't really been out on the ice at practice a whole lot.
Yeah.
So what I noticed, and before that, what I said to the team was, like, I don't want to be a coach. Like, I'm not getting dressed in their room. I'm keeping my stall. My gear is still in the locker room. I'm here for you guys. Like, if you guys want extra work, if there's anything you want to do, just grab me at the end of practice. You can tell me what the drills you want to do, or you can ask if I have any ideas, whatever you want. And so what I got to see was that the exact guys that I thought would want to do that did it. And the exact guys that kept getting off the ice, like before the pucks were even picked up, kept doing that too. So it really just, the closer you get, the more of a magnifying glass gets put on how you see everybody's personality and their habits, even closer than maybe if you were a teammate, because you might be doing your own thing.
Yeah.
But if I'm just out there in a tracksuit, I can just buzz around and kind of poke my head in wherever I want, right? So that's what I noticed with that.
Yeah, it's a whole different perspective, and you got like a piece of both, which is also interesting, like especially since you're playing at the or you're like on the team at the time too, and just to have that like extra like point of view, that look that on both sides of the game, and like especially like being like that guy where you're like, yeah, just come to me if you need anything, if you need any work, and then like the guys that do and the guys that don't, like you just notice all the personalities like you said.
Yeah.
So then you go through all that, you go 5 years of college hockey, and then before picking up college hockey, you played 2 years of juniors. One, you spent a lot of time in the USPHL Premier and the Elite League there. Those were your before going into the OJ. So like you started with the South Shore Kings in the Premier League. So like what were those 2 years of juniors like, especially since you seemed to move around and were a bit of a suitcase during those 2 years?
Yeah, it was really the second year that I moved around a ton. First year I was with South Shore, which was easy for me. I was living in Rhode Island with my dad, and I just finished prep school in Massachusetts. I trained in Foxborough for years before that, where the South Shore Kings play. And so that was like a home away from home as far as a rink goes. I had a knee injury that season that kept me out most of the year. And then the next year, I started out with the Bay State Breakers, and then I went to the OJ with Burlington Cougars. I was there for 3 months. It was kind of a mess. We had like mostly 16-year-olds on the team. And we just got killed every game. I bet I averaged like 50 shots a game in that league. It was kind of a frustrating thing. I think they've been better now. The guy that was hired halfway through my time there, I think is still the coach. And I think he's done a pretty good job building that up, but it took a few years to get some older players on the team, or at least to get those guys that were young and talented, but too young to be playing U20, junior hockey, junior A, when they could have been midgets. Like it was kind of silly. And then, so we weren't going to make the playoffs, and they sent me to the Junior Bruins, and that was a situation where they said, like, you can play games for our elite team. I played 10 games, and I either went 10-0 or I went 9-0-1, something like that. We had a really good team. I was giving up less than a goal a game, and they ended up winning the national championship that year. And I would practice with the premier team. This was before the NCDC was a thing. So those were the A and the B levels. And then they just didn't need a goalie. Like, they actually probably didn't need a goalie. They were winning games like 9-0 sometimes. So it did not matter who was in net. Both guys that were playing, they both had good NCAA D3 college careers. And then the majority of my elite team also had Division III college careers. And I really wanted to be in the premier level, so I asked for a trade. They sent me to the Connecticut Junior Rangers, which was, I think, the worst team in the league at that point of the season. And I did really well. I think I had lost so many games in the OJ. I only won one game in 3 months, and I played every game. I don't think I had a single game off. I may have gotten pulled from like one, but to go to the Junior Bruins and start winning, even if it was at the elite level, I was just like reinvigorated about that. And you kind of get used to the winning, becomes more of a habit, than just something like, oh, we happened to win today. It went well for us. Like, no, we showed up and we won. So bringing that to the Connecticut team, or at least bring it for myself. I did pretty well with them, and there were only maybe like 15 games left in the season at that point. I played like 6 or 7 of them, and the other guy that had been there all year played the others. And so I enjoyed that. It was good to play against some of the good, the better teams in that highest level again. And yeah, I have no complaints about that organization or the Junior Bruins or the Breakers, or it was all good.
Yeah. So like you said, you're in the USPHL Premier and Elite level, and then you go into the OJHL where you're a young squad. You're majority of the guys are 16. So like, what are some tips for like guys or girls that go in like a level like that and they have such a young team and you're just getting buried every game and you're just getting pummeled with shots?
Don't complain.
That's a big one.
Yeah, and because if you're, and I don't mean to sound arrogant saying this, but if you're not the problem, and a lot of other guys or girls seem like they might be part of a problem, especially if it's something that's mostly out of their control. Like, my teammates were just too young. It's not really their fault,
Yeah.
Like, they just be like having middle schoolers on a high school team or high schoolers on a college team. Like, you're gonna lose. So if you're, especially as goalies, we end up being the quote unquote victims of bad teams, right? Because we're the last line of defense. And I always tell guys who don't quite understand what it's like to play goalie, like, if you have a bad shift, like, okay, you didn't make a good pass, or maybe you give up a 2-on-1 or something like that. If a goalie has a bad shift, that's a goal. Like,
Yeah.
If you have 3 bad shifts as a forward or a defenseman, maybe one of them ends up in a goal. If you have 3 bad shifts as a goalie, you're going to get pulled.
Yeah.
So if we're the victims, everybody knows that, right? Like, my teammates knew that I was facing 60 shots some games, or I was facing at least 45 shots every night. We'd give up 7, 8 goals, not on a regular basis, but more than you would want to.
Yeah.
So what good is it to do by going into the locker room and breaking a stick or yelling at somebody? Like, that's just going to embarrass them, because hopefully they care enough to already feel bad about how things are going. And I would say that is true no matter what level you're at as the goalie. Don't blame anybody else, right? Because they'll all feel bad for you anyway. So as soon as you blame somebody for it, then they're going to be pissed off, and then they'll hate you, right?
And you don't want that, especially as a goalie. You don't want to be hated.
No. So I think I got upset once in those 3 months with the team in the OJ. It was after first period. We were in Kingston playing the Voyagers. One of my training buddies was on the other team, and they outshot us. I think it was like 24-2 in the first period. And I came back in the room and I was very quiet and calm. And I just said, guys, I don't really care that I faced 24 shots. We just need to get more than 2 on their goalie. And that was like the only thing I said. The times that I think you can be harder on teammates is in practice. If reps are bad, and then the games are going bad, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I've been hard on guys in practice before, from high school to a few times in college stand out to me. to even this last season. If things are getting sloppy as the goalie, it's purely reactive, right? We can't do anything that we're not reacting to. If a defenseman isn't trying and they're facing one-on-ones, the forward can still skate as fast as they want. But if the guy with the puck isn't trying and the goalie starts going fast, like that doesn't even make sense as far as timing and physics or whatever you want to call it. So bad reps affect us completely out of our control. That's when you can get hard on guys, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I would say for anybody that's kind of in an unideal team situation. If your team is struggling, don't blame them. Don't get upset about the games. If it's because of practice, get upset about it during practice. It shows that you care too.
Yeah. And like once you show that you care, like a lot of people will step up their game and like respect everything a lot more because like you're putting everything you have into it, and like you're like doing everything you can to stop the puck and keep the puck out of the net.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like those are some great tips to explain and tell, because like even as like a goalie coach now, like you always hear people say it's the defense's fault and like just all this stuff, but like just to hear that, like you can like you just got to control what you can control. You can't control what other people are doing.
Absolutely.
Like you can control what you can control, like making that first save, putting it into the corner, putting rebounds in the corner, is just making sure no rebounds come in front, just stuff like that. And like all the little things, like those will definitely help you keep your goal count down.
Yeah, for sure. And it allows you to improve too, right?
Yeah.
If you, even to yourself, if you blame other people all the time for every goal that you give up, there's no room for you to say, well, I guess I probably could have done something a little bit better there. You might lose your mind if that's all you think.
Yeah.
So it's all right to say like, oh, my defenseman kind of screwed me on this play, but to yourself, but don't make a habit out of it because you'll never get better. You'll never think that you need to.
Yeah, it shows accountability too, that you're taking ownership of your mistake that you may have had, and just that allowed a puck into the back of the net.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then before going to juniors, you played prep school. So like what like helped you make that decision to go into the prep route and go to Tabor Academy?
Yeah. It seemed like what the good players were doing. So I think it was before a lot of people started playing juniors in high school. So there were still some pretty good players in town private high school hockey, especially in New England when there's so many hockey players. And so I went to a school called LaSalle Academy for 2 years. And after my freshman year, I kind of thought like, we just went to the state finals. We lost. I was the goalie for that as the freshman. I'm going to start poking around at prep schools to go to. And I was just as into playing soccer as I was hockey. I didn't make the varsity high school soccer team, and I still don't know why, because it was like now I'm getting pissed off about something finally, but like it was basically a team that was comprised of players that I played against in club and premier soccer, and that I had beaten. I was the captain of my premier team. I think it was like an ethnic thing. Like our high school soccer coach was Portuguese, and he really favored like the Portuguese and the Latin American kids, and I wasn't in this group. And then he wanted me to play goalie my sophomore year. I was like I'm not a goalie. I've never played goalie in soccer in my life. Just because I played it in hockey, like I'm 5'9". couldn't even touch the crossbar the majority of my
The goal
life.
is a
So
lot bigger in soccer than
exactly,
hockey.
yeah. So anyway, there was that, and I felt like, especially by my sophomore year, I'd kind of reached the height of high school hockey for Rhode Island. I hadn't won a
Yeah.
state championship yet, but I was the all-state goalie and the all-conference goalie and all that stuff my sophomore year. So decided to go to prep school. I looked at a bunch of schools and I liked Tabor second best, I think, and they gave me the most scholarship money, and the soccer coach wanted me, the hockey coach wanted me. It was the only school that hit like all three of those things. And so I went there, and it was a blast.
Had all the check marks that you wanted, and it helped you pick that school and develop over time, where you would, like your second year at Tabor, you would be the captain of the team. So like what was the most important thing you learned throughout like that captaincy term, when you are the captain for the team, especially like as a goalie, and you're like, you never hear of goalies being captains for their team.
No, and even worse, we didn't even have an alternate. Like nobody had an A on their jersey. So
You were the only captain.
yeah, it was hard. A lot of it fell on my shoulders. The coach and I butted heads a few times. I'd say the biggest learning experience was when he pulled me from a game. We were getting kind of taken to task by a school called Kimball Union, and he took me out and put in this kid that I didn't really like that much. He wasn't even on the team. He was our backup was sick, and he was in the hospital dorm, and I got off the ice, like onto the bench, and I was yelling at our coach, and he did not like that. So there was some issues there. So I guess that was a time when I started to go more from I can lead with words and action to just leading by example and kind of just shutting up about stuff that bothered me. I didn't have that opportunity quite as much at my first high school because I was an underclassman. Our coach was like an old school, kind of crazy, hardo guy. Nobody really had a chance to talk ever. And if you did have a chance to talk when he was out of the room, you never wanted to yell at your own teammates because he probably just had for about half an hour. So it was usually like we get yelled at, and then the upperclassmen are like, all right, guys, like, don't worry, like it's going to be okay. When I got to Tabor, it was kind of the opposite. Our coach was really laid back, and it bothered me because I didn't think that he was super passionate about it. So when we would lose and he didn't really care, that bothered me a lot. But I learned that you usually can't change anybody's personality very easily. And the only way that you can get other people on board with what you're trying to do is to not lower yourself to somebody else's poor standards.
Yeah.
So if you feel like a lot of guys on your team don't care and you do, and a few of them might, don't just show up and say, well, like, I guess the thing around here is not to care. I guess I can do that too. It'd be easy. Like, you can be comfortable feeling hated by some of your teammates because you try hard and they don't, or you don't get along. I find it really hard to get along with people like that because your success is dependent on one another. But it sends a stronger message to not complain and show up and do it anyway, quietly, than it does to get really frustrated and call people out right and left. And then you're just seeing, you might strike people as kind of an unhappy whiner, for lack of a better term. That was really what I took away from being a captain there, and the only one, and the goalie. It was for a position where a lot already falls on your shoulders, especially when things aren't going well. I think we were below 500 that year. I played every game except one that I had the flu. It was a hard season, and that after that, I was less emotional and vocal outwardly, and more about, like, I show up, I do what I think needs to be done. If somebody's not pulling their weight, maybe I take them aside. Maybe I just don't stoop down to their level, and that sends enough of a message on its own.
Yeah, leading by example. Like you want everyone to like work like hard like you do, and like the only way to get people to do it, especially if they look up to you as a captain, is just to lead by example and just put in the work and do like the small little things that will actually like help you and your team to get better, even like when some people don't care, don't want to do the extra stuff.
I've broken a lot less sticks after I kind of made that change. I went through like 12 sticks that season. I only broke a couple in games. I've probably broken less than 12 out of frustration since I graduated from high school. So
no more slamming your stick on the post.
Yeah, not a good look in front of the younger players.
Yeah, you gotta keep your cool whenever you can, especially like when things do get out of hand. You just gotta remember to stay cool. Yeah. So for this next part, you know how I put up a Q&A question on Instagram. So let's finish off this episode with some questions, because we have a few good questions here. So how about we get started with that? So first question is, who was your favorite guy in Peoria?
My favorite guy in Peoria, I was probably closest with the other goalie, Eric Levine.
Yeah.
It's the first time that my best friend on the team was probably the other goalie, or at least the guy that I like enjoyed the most. And definitely the first time where I had like a really solid relationship with the other goalie on the team. There's like zero competition between us, because I just knew that he was going to play every game that he was able to. And he was not threatened by me at all. It was more like, I'm there to support him. I'm there to work hard and improve myself as much as I can and be ready if I need to go in. And I'm there to help my teammates get better. And it doesn't mean that you work any less hard, but it makes the relationship a lot easier. The other guys, I liked Wilkie a lot. Kind of a funny guy. He had a really good season. He signed with Wheeling, I think, in the coast.
Yeah, I played against Wilkie in a men's league game a couple weeks ago.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a funny guy. He's high strong. Yeah. But we had a really great locker room. I was surprised at how much all the guys on that roster got along. Hags was an awesome captain. Probably the best captain I've ever had. My roommates were good guys. One of them ended up coming to Port Huron. He got cut from Peoria about a month after I did. Justin Brazen. He's like a Fed legend.
Oh yeah,
a hilarious guy. really good guy. So yeah, but it was great. I liked everybody that I met in Peoria, from the staff to the players to the fans. It was a really good experience.
Yeah, great city and a great team to play for. Like nothing bad to say about anyone that you met there.
Nope.
That's awesome. And then the next question is, how's Lucy?
Lucy's good. She turned 9. She's she's just fixing herself over here. She turned 9 in May, and she could not be better. She's loving the summer life. She's been in Boston with me the majority of the summer, and just the last couple of weeks, the schedule's been getting too hectic for her to be home by herself as long as she would be. So she's up here in Maine at my dad's house where he and I live. So she's good. Any chance we get, we go out the front door and hop in the ocean.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Your house, the house is right outside of the ocean.
Yep. Yeah, we live in Northport, which is a coastal town. It's about 2.5 hours north of Portland, and we're lucky we have a house with the beach down there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Always good to get that water time in, especially like if you have it right in your front area, front porch. Like you just gotta enjoy the ocean there.
Yeah, for sure. That was
Yeah,
the worst
anyway.
part about playing in the Midwest.
Yeah, there's no ocean, just like Michigan over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I
we're
was
glad.
surprised actually at how big Lake Huron was. Because
Was it big?
yeah, I mean Port Huron's on the river, so I drove out kind of to the mouth of the river to where you could see the bigger lake. It looked just like the ocean. It was weird.
Yeah,
It was
but
nice. I thought it was
when you
cool to
get
see like
closer,
legit sand beaches on a lake.
Yeah, over here you get the ocean just by the lake and the sand. That's it. There's no
exactly.
no big water land over here.
Right.
Yeah, but we're glad Lucy was able to join the podcast today. It was a treat to have her.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, how do you clean your gear?
I don't. Is that like I don't know if that's we had a in Foxborough with Stop It for a while. There was a gear washing machine that the coach would charge like $15 for guys to use. I don't think I ever used it, but my dad is like kind of a germaphobe. So any chance that he gets to lay my gear out, even still, like I'm 28 and he still lays my gear out if it's sunny, he'll do that. I'll do it. And then during the summer now, like I just leave my gear at the rink. So the pro group for Stop It gets to use, I think it's the Merrimack men's volleyball locker room at the rink. And because all their athletic stuff is in one building.
Yeah.
And I just have a fan, dialed on it. So it really doesn't get that gross.
Yeah, it's so nice when you don't have to take your gear home and you can just leave it in your stall and not have to carry it everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next one is what's your game day routine?
Game day routine changed a little bit this year. I got one of those Sense Arena VR things. So I started using that before games. I'd get to the rink about maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes, maybe 3 hours sometimes beforehand. Take my suit off, get my gitch on, tape my sticks. Depending on where I was, Peoria didn't have a sauna, so I would bike. Port Huron did have a sauna, surprisingly, because the Peoria facilities were pretty nice, and Peoria's were a little bit older, but they did have a sauna, which is good. So I'd hop in that for about 5 minutes, and then I would roll out my hips, stretch, do the VR, then go play sewer with the team, roll out my hips again, and then I'd start getting dressed with about 15 to 12 minutes before warm-ups. Say a prayer.
You're a fast dresser.
And then go out. Yeah. sometimes it would get hot. I just hate sweating in my gear,
Yeah.
or like even just from sweating from the warm up. Like, I hate sweating before I actually have exercised. I think it sucks to sit in your gear and
Yeah.
just be hot.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that was the routine. And then between periods, this wasn't the question, but kind of in that same vein, get the uppers off, go to the bathroom, get a drink, and stretch, and just try to. I learned pretty quickly how much it sucks to sit in your gear in like just a 90-degree seated
Yeah.
position and then try to stand back up 20 minutes later and go butterfly again. So that gets harder every season.
Yeah, and
I never
hoping
thought
you don't
about
pull a
that in high
groin or
school.
pull a hamstring while trying to get up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome that you like the routine. That routine like works for you and everything, and it's just awesome to see like the routines that everyone has, because everyone has something different and unique. So it's awesome to hear.
Yeah. I wish I was the guy that didn't have to do anything. I could just like never
Just
work out,
sit
never
down. Yeah,
stretch, never warm up, show up 10 minutes before practice or a game and throw my gear on and do the splits, but that's not me.
yeah, not you, but definitely definitely do whatever you can. But the next
Yeah.
question is, since you are a shorter goalie, like at
Yeah.
5'9", like what do you do to help yourself stand out, like compete against the guys that are like 6'1", 6'2", 6'3"?
Yeah. I said skating was super important. I try not to play, if this makes sense, like a small goalie. I think everybody stereotypically would think that a small goalie plays super far out of the crease, has to be like lightning fast down on their
Yeah.
knees all the time. And I think that works to a certain point, but I think if you play too far out of your crease, you're going to get beat
Yeah.
on the back door too much. And you can't control every rebound. And if there's too much net behind you, if there's too much ice behind you before you get back to the post, then you're going to be screwed. You're going to get caught out of the crease. So for me, it's about being able to read the play really well and hold my edges as long as I can, and take the ice when it's there to be taken outside of your crease. If you know that somebody's going to shoot, if they don't have any options, and then on rebounds, maybe try pushing forward into it a little bit more. You watch a guy like Shesterkin, he almost pushes diagonally forward into pucks when he's scrambling, and he thinks with his front shin, like that's what he's trying to get to the puck. That's the closest piece of equipment to the puck usually when it's to the side, and he cuts down the angle the same way you might cut down the angle with active hands out in front of you. He'll do that with his legs, and I think it works really well. He's not a very big guy. I think he's listed at 6'1", but he's probably 5'10" or 5'11" at most. If you look at him and Saros, like where the crossbar hits them, it's not that much different. And Saros is a really little guy. He might only be maybe an inch taller than I am, but that's what I would say. And if you're talking about how to stand out against the other guys, like you have to be better than them at just about everything, because you can't get better at being taller. So
I wish we were able to, but that
I
doesn't
know,
happen.
right? Yeah, it would be cool. Puck handling is a good way still. For some reason, goalies don't handle the puck well. Like all of them don't. So did you want this? Here you go. Okay, good girl. Puck handling, regardless of what size you are, is something that is kind of hit or miss with goalies still. And that's something that you can stand out with too.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some great tips to help guys stand out, especially on the shorter side, because it's a lot harder being shorter than being taller and being able to take up more than that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, shorter goalies have to prove they can play, and taller goalies usually have to prove that they can't.
Yeah,
Too bad,
exactly.
but
Yeah, exactly.
the way it
But
is.
Joe, yeah, but Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Got it,
I
man.
really appreciate your time and wish you the best of luck going forward with this coming season. I look forward to following your career the rest of the way.
Yeah, thank you. You too. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.